So today we're going to go through two really simple ways to price your martial arts classes. So lots of people struggle to work out what they should be charging. Most of the time the case is just you can go to whatever is in your area and go for like an average, or you can try and undercut people, or you can try and go for more of a premium cost. But really simply, the most simple way to do this is look at the average cost of classes in your area. Now, depending on where you are, sometimes this might be £6, which is really cheap. And then in other cases, this might be 12, 13, 14 pound per class. Okay, so look for like an average in your area. So if we take, usually again, average is more like between 8 and 12. Okay, adults classes verge more towards 12. Things like yoga have very much got a name of a bit more of a premium name, so people will pay more for those. Whereas kids classes might be more like £6 to £8. So if we go with a really standard £8 per class, okay, again, that's on a relatively low end. But if we say, again, we've got two versions here. If we say we're on £8 per class, and then what you do is you go, what do I want most students to attend? Would I like them to attend once a week, or would I like them to attend twice or more a week? So if I say, okay, I'd like kids to attend twice per week, okay, then I work out £8 twice a week for 4 weeks, let's say, and then we end up at £64, 64 per month, that would be. Okay, so that's relatively cheap for a per month cost. But you know then whether they come to class or not, because kids have classes off all the time for illnesses and stuff, that you're getting for every member that's on every student that's on the mats, £8 per class. Okay, whether they're there or not. Okay, and that's important because if you're still charging per class, this looks like a much higher number. So if every time they come in they have to give you that money, then you've also got to take into account is if they're sat at home and they don't want to, if they don't turn up, they've got nothing to lose. If they've already paid for it because they're paying monthly, then they're more likely to turn up and therefore more likely to get better, therefore more likely to stay for longer. Okay, so if you're still charging per class, stop. So simple as that. So if this is the way you want to do it, okay, £8 per class, £64 a month. If you start to go, okay, I'd like to charge £10 per class, then straight away £10 is going to transfer to 80. We'll just times it by 8 to make it super simple. So that would be £80, and that would be per month. Okay. Then you can start to structure them. So from this, if you go for an average, you could say, okay, if people do want to train once a week, then I can't half this. Because if I half this, so let's say it's 80, if I half it and make it 40, then everybody's going to pick the 40 because it's the less amount coming out of their bank account each month. So what you would do in this case is you would say, okay, I'd like people to go for this one. So what I'll do is I'll make once a week more expensive. So that might be 60 per month. And then what would happen there is people would look at this and it's still a lesser amount, and they go, okay, you can only attend the once a week, but this is a much better deal. So this is a much better deal, but also if they do go for that, then you're now making more like £12.50 per class off them. No, it's more than that. It's £15, sorry, per class, as opposed to the £10. Okay, so it's just a way of looking at it. So this is the super simple way. We'll call this the super simple way. Okay, the more still simple, but one thing that this doesn't take into account is how much it costs you. Okay, so you go, okay, yeah, I'm getting £8 a class, so on and so forth. But if the building that you're in costs you thousands of pounds a month, then you've got to maybe look at this in a very, very different way. So this would be, I would look at my outgoings, and this would be absolutely everything. okay? Outgoings, absolutely everything that comes out of your bank account, okay? So let's round that up, and let's say that's £5,000, okay? If you're in a full-time facility, this might be closer. If you're in a part-time facility, you're probably looking at more like £1,000. Some of you will be even less than that, okay? Look at you guys. So if you're at £5,000, then the full-time facility obviously warrants more space, more classes and more members and such. So if I go, okay, it costs me £5,000, but I can run classes 6 days a week, and in those 6 days, I could get 3, maybe 4 classes. And you've got to always start to work stuff out like this. So let's say you've got 3 age groups, little kids, kids, and adults. Okay, so let's say you do those 3 classes, and we'll do it at 5 to make it easier. So we run those 5 days a week. So that's 15 classes each week. How much space do I have on my mats? Can I get 20 people in these classes? If I can get 20 people in these classes, we have to half it, of course, because they're doing twice a week. So let's say I've got 77.5, half of 15 times 20. So what I've got here is 15. What I've got here is 7.5, so 75 plus, so 150 spaces. So I've got 100, at least I nearly got to 1,500 then, that would have been high. So I've got 150 spaces available, okay? Obviously, if you've got a huge matted area, you could maybe get more than 20. Some people like to limit their younger kids because they're younger kids. So you might have less, but you would work this out. How many classes have I got? And the reason I've halved it again is because I want them to train twice a week. So if I've got 150 spaces, so 150 member spaces, I would then go back to these numbers, okay? So if I've got, if my bills are £5,000, okay, and you've got to take into account wages, so all the outgoings in here. If they're £5,000, and I have 150 spaces to try and get to this £5,000, then you're going to have to work out what that is. So I'm going to quickly do that, okay? Because I can't do that in my head. So 5,000 divided by 150, okay? So you've got 33, so divided by 150 is 34. So it's 33.33333, okay? So that means if you have 150 members, so I've got 150 members, and they're paying £34 each month, then I'm at 100. Okay, that's just because we changed that to a 34. So straight away, I've covered my costs if I have 150 members. So this would be a good way to look at the pricing. But if you look at this, that's £34 a month, and that's for 2 classes, because that's what I took into account here. Now, £34 a month for 2 classes is crazy cheap. Okay, so straight away, you would say, this is what I need, but actually what's more realistic? Because I don't want my outgoings to always stay like this. If you want to start paying yourself more, if you want to bring in new members of staff to cover some of these classes that you're teaching, then you've got to also think, okay, what if I try and double this? Okay, and all you'd be doing then is turning that from 34 into 68, which is actually on the cheaper end over here. Okay, so when you look at stuff like this, then you start to realize, okay, I can price myself in a little bit of a different area, because if we did it the super simple way, we'd be doing better off than if we were doing it this long-winded way. Another thing that you can do as well is when you're setting yourself or saying what in your area is a good amount to charge, there's a sum. So it's 0.02, I think, to 0.03 of the average household income in your area. Okay, that's a household, so that's both parents, how much they earn. So really, really simply, if this was £100,000, so both parents were earning £50,000, then straight away you're at 200 to 300, and that would be your price range, where you'd want to be between. Obviously, if it's £50,000, you would just half this. So this is just a thing that I got from some other guys that give me this workings out. And it was quite interesting because most of the time you'll fall somewhere in there. So in the area close by to where we are, it's about £40,000. So we worked that out. It was something like between 65, I think, to, let's say it was to 100. So you would work out your pricing based on that, looking at your average household income. Obviously, if the area is a little bit lower, then you obviously have to take that into account with your prices. But there's lots of stuff going on here, and I know some of it's a little bit messy. But if you need any clarification, again, we've got an online community where you can jump in and we can talk about all these things. But if you need any more help on doing this sort of stuff, then just reach out, comment down below, or get in touch with our community. Thank you for watching.